The real, serious discussion would begin when Republicans released our outline. We have produced a tailored and targeted draft that will cut right to the heart of three distinct crises facing our country: getting kids back in school, getting workers back to work, and winning the healthcare fight against the virus. Kids, jobs, and healthcare. Kids, jobs, and healthcare. First, our nation's kids. Chairman Alexander, Blunt, and Shelby will be introducing a sweeping package to help schools and universities reopen safely. We're talking about more than $100 billion, more for an education fund than House Democrats put aside in a bill that spent multiple trillions. And there are policies to help child care providers and schools have the flexibility they need to function. Second, jobs. Since our nation has one foot in the pandemic and one foot in the recovery, our economic policies have to acknowledge both sides of that coin. Chairman Grassley will introduce another round of direct checks for households at the same amount as before, with even more support for families who care for vulnerable adult dependents. Chairman Collins and Rubio have designed a sequel to their historic PPP to help prevent more layoffs of American workers. And Republicans want to continue a federal supplement to state unemployment insurance. In fact, we'll propose a weekly dollar amount that is 8 times what Democrats put in place when they controlled the White House and Congress during the Great Recession. But we have to do it in a way that does not slow down reopening. We're also going to help this country pivot into recovery. The American people don't just want relief, they want opportunity, so long as the reopenings can be safe. So Chairman Grassley will walk through strong economic incentives to boost worker retention, get Americans rehired, and help small businesses buy the PPE, testing, and supplies that will protect employees and customers alike. Senator Romney has legislation to help a future Congress ensure our critical national trust funds remain strong. And looking to our long-term jobs future, there is no question this pandemic has America and our allies re-examining our degree of dependence on China. Chairman Graham is introducing a package of legislation that will incentivize PPE manufacturing right here at home. It will ensure that our efforts to rebuild our national stockpile of protective gear actually benefit American workers instead of just stimulating China. And it will bring a heightened focus to other key concerns such as the high-tech semiconductor manufacturing, critical minerals, and intellectual property theft, so the lessons of this pandemic do not go unlearned. And finally, healthcare. Chairman Alexander, Grassley, and others I've already named have legislation to keep America on offense against this virus. Diagnostics, treatments, vaccines, hospitals and healthcare workers, protecting seniors who rely on Medicare for premium spikes. Our legislation supports all of it at continued historic levels. And tying kids, jobs, and healthcare all together, Senator Cornyn has authored strong legal liability protections so that nurses, doctors, charities, school districts, colleges, and employers can spend the next months actually reopening rather than fighting for their lives against frivolous lawsuits. We'll preserve accountability in the event of gross negligence or intentional misconduct, but we're not going to let trial lawyers throw a party on the backs of the frontline workers and institutions who fought this new enemy on the front lines: health, economic assistance, liability, and schools. Another historic package for the next phase of this historic national fight. To make a law, bipartisan talks need to come next. So there's one big question facing the country right now. Which version of our distinguished Democratic colleagues are the American people about to get? We're going to get the Democratic Party we got in March, when our colleagues met us in good faith negotiations and worked with us to turn our framework into a bipartisan product? The Democrats who helped us pass the largest rescue package in American history without one dissenting vote? Or will the country get the Democratic Party we saw in June, when our colleagues refused to suggest amendments or improvements to Senator Tim Scott's police reform bill and chose to block the issue altogether? Their actions last month left some observers wondering whether Democrats had made this cynical choice to give up on bipartisan legislation altogether right through November. Whether Democrats had determined that strengthening our nation with bipartisan action might hurt their political odds, and therefore it might suit their fortunes better if pain and chaos simply continued. I hope that's completely off base, Madam President. I know our Democratic colleagues know this crisis is still urgent. I know they know American families need more help. So I hope this strong proposal will occasion a real response, not partisan cheap shots, not the predictable, tired, old rhetoric as though these were ordinary times and the nation could afford ordinary politics. We cannot have a Senate minority decide in June it is done legislating until November. The pandemic is not finished. The economic pain is not finished. So Congress cannot be finished either.